Candy Sowens, the famous podcaster, and Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
The question I've got to ask you is, who killed Charlie Kirk and why?
Ooh. All right, we got to get I need to add a dun 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 sound effect right there. Wow, she is going hard in the paint from the word. Okay. Who killed Charlie Kirk? Okay. We 6 minutes in and she's going. All right, let's see. I just got a feeling it's going to be underwhelming. So, all right, let's go.
That is quite a question.
Because you know his family, his wife, and
I do. It's a very to be honest with you, Charlie and I were very, very close indeed, and to witness his basically public execution has been the hardest thing in my life, really. It has been awful. And I don't know the answer to that question. What I do know is I do hunt a lot. And I use, when one shoots, you live up in Scotland, there's a lot of red deer up there, and if you go stalking for red deer, you will use generally quite a high-powered rifle, and a 30-06 rifle is something that tends to be used for large game. Whenever I have shot a red deer, and I've shot a number of them, with a 30-06, I have always witnessed and seen an exit wound. In other words, you have the entrance wound where the bullet goes in, and then a 30-06 would actually punch a huge hole. The entrance room for the rifle bullet is very small, actually. And then when the bullet comes out the other side of the animal, it's a very large exit wound. And
I have to say, I know you've covered this ad nauseum, but just as a reminder, this is part of the ballistics report, and the type of ammunition that is used. There is a plethora of ammunition that can be used in the 30-06. This, the expectation again from Candace and everybody else is just dump all this information to us. They are building a case, and this is part of what they included in the evidence that's being brought to trial. Mm-hmm. So it's using anecdotal information that he has. I've shot deer with a 308, very similar round, different power. And yeah, it does punch through. It all depends on the type of ammunition that you're using. And I think you and I believe Gary, when he was on, you guys have discussed this.
And Gary has gone ad nauseum about it as well. Mm-hmm. He's definitely the ballistics expert, but I'm just a novice at best, right? And to your point, it's the type of ammunition. It's not the actual weapon. Mm-hmm. And people seem to think, well, if you say a 30-06, then it can only shoot this projectile that's as big as my fist, and it'll punch a hole through, 8 buildings afterwards, like we're shooting. No, that's not the case. There are other types of projectiles that can come from that gun. Mm-hmm. And again, and I only learned that because I realized that there were people who use this for hunting foxes and wolves amongst your sheep. This is how the shepherds call the wolves and foxes that attack their sheep. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't want it to go through the wolf and take out one of the sheep that you're trying to protect. So it makes perfect sense. And to be honest with you, I think that's why Candace has actually not been mentioning this as hard as she was before, because she kind of hinted after talking to Erica on the 15th of December that they told her what it was. Mm-hmm. And because she calls it a frangible bullet. Mm-hmm. And me and Gary kind of joked about that, the frangible part. So it's almost like she knows that it's the likelihood it was a missile is not the case. We're talking about something that probably was akin to taking out foxes or rabbits in small game, not trying to take out a bear.
Yeah, the rounds do so much to dissipate energy and to prevent punch through and all that stuff. Yeah.
So I think this is interesting, and again, him using his anecdotal hunting story as proof for that. It's just going to be wild. Okay, let's go.
Of course, when the footage came out, it was very, very clear that there was no exit wound. And we're being told, obviously, that he was killed by this fellow. There's the official story and there's what's been proposed. Of course, I haven't seen all of the evidence. But it is, what do they say? Something's wrong in the state of Denmark. It doesn't seem to me to be a story that holds together. And I don't know if you've been watching any of her podcasts, but Candace, who is a family friend, really, I happen to have introduced her to her husband. Oddly, I'll tell you that story later. But Candace has produced a series of investigation, which I would thoroughly recommend anybody to watch. Any free-thinking person should definitely be interested, because there are so many anomalies which point to certainly flaws in the official story, that I think it behooves any right-thinking person to look into it, not least because the person who is currently in jail for allegedly shooting Charlie may well face the death penalty if convicted. And I've never particularly been a big fan of the death penalty anyway. Obviously in America, that is the law. So you have to respect the laws of another country. But the idea of a Christian nation basically putting a person to death that may not be guilty of the crime which she's been accused, it would weigh very heavily on the soul of the nation. And we have to remember, this is not 1963. You know, in 1963, we're all...
Hold on. I'm sorry. So he thinks that he would get like an unfair trial, like they would not actually show proof of why he was found guilty? You just think, oh, we're just going to say it. We'll walk in there and say, he did it. Let's go home and let's go have lunch.
It makes a lot of assumptions. The assumption is that the judge is willing to convict without proper evidence, that the local police are willing to present improper evidence, that the FBI is willing to present improper evidence, that the defense is willing to use improper evidence to wrongfully convict a guy who is, you know, this is, it's again, it's the layers that they apply to it that don't match with reality. This is why I've practiced a bit of temperance, I guess would be the right word, when it comes to drawing these conclusions. And I know that I think that you do the same, is that this is a case with local police, or with not Nevada police that are handling this investigation. I'm sure FBI is involved, trying to find how this links into other states. And there's a prosecution, there's a judge. To say that he's already drawing that conclusion, and he's pitching that to the audience of this lady here, that if this guy, it's, you know, he says that it would be terrible if this happened. It's a stain on the soul of the nation, which it would be. Everyone is, but that is so rare in America. And under such a high profile case, the likelihood is practically zero. And he mentioned Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald never made it to trial.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is a very interesting take to position it like this, as if, again, a jury is going to take this faulty information and this faulty evidence and come up with a conclusion that he's guilty, even though the evidence doesn't lead us to that direction. And the other problem I find is he says, I haven't seen all the evidence. When have you ever? When have we, as the bystanders, ever seen all the evidence in anything? I did the whole YSL trial. There's so much evidence we never saw. I went to court. I went to the actual court. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the JWhit Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment, because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.